3,000 years. 3,000 years of absolute, blissful, mind-numbingly boring peace across the Nexari Empire. Our species had evolved beyond warfare, beyond conflict, beyond the primitive need to solve problems with violence. We were sophisticated, enlightened, superior, and then those hairless, bipedal maniacs called humans showed up. My name is Vex-Prime Thornwick, 4th echelon of the Nexari High Council, and I was the unfortunate soul assigned to monitor Sector 7749 Alpha when humanity first stumbled into our territory. At the time, I thought it would be just another routine classification of a pre-warp species. File some paperwork, maybe establish a few monitoring stations, call it a day. Oh, how spectacularly wrong I was. The first sign of trouble came when our deep space sensors detected their primitive fusion drives approaching the outer rim of our territory. Standard protocol dictated we observe, categorize, and if necessary, relocate them to a more suitable region of space. After all, we were benevolent overlords. We didn't simply exterminate lesser species. We guided them, protected them from themselves. Sub-Commander Yazek, I called across our monitoring station, my forearms gesturing dismissively at the holographic display. What exactly am I looking at here? Yazek, a younger Nexari with the typical purple-scaled skin and those ridiculously oversized craniums our species was known for, hunched over his console. His eye stalk swiveled toward me with what I could only describe as confusion. Sir, the readings are unusual. These humans appear to have developed faster-than-light communication before achieving stable warp technology. They're coordinating their fleet movements across impossible distances. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through our pristine command center like breaking glass. Impossible? Yazek, my young friend, you clearly need to recalibrate your sensors. No species develops quantum entanglement communication before basic spacefolding drives. It's simply not done. But as I watched their fleet movements over the following days, my amusement began curdling into something far less pleasant. These humans weren't following any logical technological progression. They had ships that looked like they'd been cobbled together from scrap metal, yet somehow maintained perfect formation across light years of space. Their communication protocols were primitive, almost barbaric in their simplicity, yet they achieved coordination that would make our own fleet admirals weep with envy. Sir, Yazek's voice had taken on that particular tone that meant he was about to deliver news I wouldn't enjoy. They've detected our monitoring station. What? I whirled around, all four arms flailing in disbelief. That's impossible. Our cloaking technology is centuries beyond their comprehension. Apparently not, sir. They're transmitting on multiple frequencies. Would you like me to translate? Before I could respond, the universal translator crackled to life, filling our command center with the most annoyingly cheerful voice I'd ever heard. Hello there, friendly neighborhood space folks. This is Captain Mira Blackstone of the Terran Exploration Fleet. We know you're watching us, and we thought it might be nice to say hi before things get awkward. Yazek's eye stalks practically tied themselves in knots. Sir, should we respond? Absolutely not, I snapped. Standard protocol clearly states, oh, and before you start with the whole, we're superior beings observing primitive species routine, Captain Blackstone's voice continued, sounding insufferably amused, we should probably mention that we've been tracking your monitoring stations for the past 6 months. Nice work on the Phase 7 cloaking, by the way. Took us almost 3 weeks to crack it. 3 weeks. They'd cracked Phase 7 cloaking technology that had taken our greatest minds 2 centuries to perfect. In 3 weeks. Yazek, I said slowly, my voice barely above a whisper, please tell me our sensors are malfunctioning. I've run diagnostics 17 times, sir. Everything is functioning perfectly. The transmission continued. We're guessing you're probably deciding whether to classify us as a threat, relocate us, or just ignore us entirely. Standard first contact protocols, right? Well, here's the thing. We've got about 40,000 colonists in this fleet, including roughly 8,000 children under the age of 15. We're not looking for trouble, but we're also not particularly interested in being relocated. Children. They'd brought their offspring on an exploration mission into unknown space. What kind of species did that? Sir, Yazek's voice was getting higher-pitched. Long-range sensors are detecting additional human fleets. Lots of them. How many? Conservative estimate? 300 ships across 12 different vectors. I felt my secondary heart skip a beat. 300? That's not an exploration fleet. That's a migration, sir. They're not just exploring. They're moving their entire civilization. The transmission crackled again. Look, we know this is probably outside your normal procedures, but we've got a proposition for you. How about we skip the whole superior alien species meets primitive humans dance and just talk? We're reasonable people. Most of the time. Against every regulation, every protocol, every instinct screaming at me to maintain proper procedural distance, I found myself reaching for the communication controls. This is Vex-Prime Thornwick of the Nexari High Council, I said, my voice carefully modulated to project authority and superiority. You are trespassing in Nexari space. State your intentions. Well, hello there, Vex-Prime Thornwick. That's quite a mouthful. Mind if we call you Thorn? Thorn? They wanted to give me a nickname? The sheer audacity was almost refreshing. You may not, I replied stiffly. Fair enough. Thornwick it is. As for our intentions, it's pretty simple. We're looking for a new home. Our previous neighborhood got a bit too crowded, if you know what I mean. The Nexari Empire spans 14 star systems, I informed them. We have no available space for colonization. Oh, we're not asking for a whole system, Captain Blackstone replied, and I could practically hear her grinning. Just a little room to stretch our legs. Maybe that nice uninhabited planet in your outer system? What do you call it? Carax 9? Yazek's eye stalks went rigid. Sir, Carax 9 is our strategic reserve world. No one is supposed to know about it. How? I demanded into the communicator. How do you know about Carax 9? Oh, that? We've been doing a bit of sightseeing while we waited for you to notice us. Lovely planet, by the way. Perfect atmospheric composition, abundant resources, and completely uninhabited. Almost like someone was saving it for a special occasion. The realization hit me like a plasma torpedo to the face. They hadn't just cracked our cloaking technology. They'd been conducting reconnaissance missions throughout our territory. 4 months. Captain Blackstone, I said, my voice taking on what I hoped was a menacing tone, you are severely underestimating the power of the Nexari Empire. We have maintained peace for 3 millennia through strength and superior technology. Oh, we're not underestimating anything, she replied cheerfully. We've run full tactical assessments on your fleet capabilities, defense networks, and resource distribution. Very impressive stuff. Really top-notch civilization you've built here. Then you understand that resistance would be futile. Well, here's where things get interesting, Thornwick. See, we humans have this funny quirk. The more impossible a situation becomes, the more creative we get. And we've had a lot of practice dealing with impossible situations. Elaborate. Let me put it this way. In the past 500 years, we've survived 3 different extinction-level events, fought off 2 separate AI uprisings, and managed to unite our entire species under a single government. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we're really, really good at adapting. I was beginning to develop what humans would probably call a headache. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? Simple trade agreement. We get Carax 9, and in exchange, we provide the Nexari Empire with something you haven't had in 3,000 years. Which is a challenge. The audacity was breathtaking. Here was a species with primitive technology, offering to challenge an empire that had achieved perfect peace and stability. "Yazek," I said quietly, "are you recording this conversation?" "Yes, sir. Every word." "Good. The High Council is going to think I'm having a neural breakdown." Captain Blackstone's voice crackled through the speakers again. "Look, Thornwick, we know this sounds crazy. But think about it. When was the last time your people had to innovate? To adapt? To grow? 3,000 years of peace sounds wonderful, but it also sounds incredibly boring." She wasn't wrong. Our society had become stagnant, predictable, safe. We'd eliminated every challenge, every uncertainty, every reason to push ourselves beyond our current limitations. "And if we refuse your proposal? Then we find somewhere else to settle, and you go back to your peaceful, predictable existence. No harm, no foul. You make it sound simple." "Oh, it is simple. The complicated part comes later." "Later?" "When you realize that letting us go would be the biggest mistake in Nexari history." I stared at the communication console for a long moment, weighing options that should have been obvious. Refuse the humans, maintain stability, follow protocol. It was the logical choice. Instead, I found myself asking, why would that be a mistake? Because, Thornwick, we're not just offering you a challenge. We're offering you an evolution. And that's when I realized that our 3,000 years of peace were about to end in the most spectacular way possible. 24 hours later, I was standing before the Nexari High Council, trying to explain why I'd agreed to let a species of bipedal maniacs establish a colony in our territory. The 7 Prime Counselors sat in their crystalline thrones, their eye stalks swiveling between me and the holographic display showing human fleet movements. Vex-Prime Thornwick, intoned Counselor Daximus, his voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of leadership, "You authorized a meeting with these humans, without consulting the High Council?" "I authorized communication, Counselor." "There's a significant difference." "Semantics," sniffed Counselor Verlina, her purple scales shimmering with disdain. "You've compromised our security protocols and potentially exposed our civilization to an unknown threat." "Unknown threat?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Counselors, these humans detected our Phase 7 cloaking technology using what appears to be modified asteroid mining equipment and pure stubbornness. They're not unknown. They're impossible." "Explain," demanded Counselor Corinth. I activated the holographic display, showing the tactical analysis Yazek had compiled. "In the past week, human reconnaissance teams have successfully infiltrated 17 of our monitoring stations, mapped our entire defensive network, and somehow managed to reverse engineer our quantum communication protocols. They did this while maintaining perfect operational security and without triggering a single alarm." The council chamber fell silent. You could have heard a spore drop. "That's impossible," whispered Counselor Jaxwell. "That's what I thought. Right up until Captain Blackstone transmitted detailed schematics of our newest battlecruiser design. The one we finished building last month." Counselor Daximus's primary eye stalk drooped. "How did they obtain classified military specifications?" "According to their transmission, they asked nicely." "They asked?" "Apparently, one of their reconnaissance teams encountered a group of our junior engineers on shore leave. Instead of avoiding contact, they struck up a conversation about propulsion technology. Our engineers, thinking they were talking to fellow Nexari from a distant system, ended up spending 3 hours enthusiastically explaining our latest innovations." The silence stretched until Counselor Verlina finally spoke. "Our engineers mistook alien beings for Nexari. The humans had acquired adaptive camouflage technology. Crude by our standards, but effective enough to fool casual observation. More importantly, they'd learned enough about our culture and technology to ask intelligent questions. Questions that made our engineers excited to share their work." "This is catastrophic," muttered Counselor Corinth. "No," I said, surprising myself with my conviction. This is fascinating. Every eye stalk in the chamber swiveled toward me. Counselors, when was the last time any species surprised us? When did we last encounter a problem we couldn't solve with existing protocols? These humans have accomplished more in 6 months than most civilizations achieve in 6 centuries. They're a threat to our security, Counselor Verlina protested. They're an opportunity for growth. Before anyone could respond, Yazek's voice echoed through the chamber's communication system. Vex-Prime Thornwick, urgent transmission from the human fleet. Captain Blackstone requests immediate contact. Put her through, I ordered, ignoring the disapproving clicks from the council. Hello again, Thornwick. Hope we're not interrupting anything important. You're addressing the Nexari High Council, Captain. I trust you have good reason for this intrusion. Oh, absolutely. See, we've run into a small problem, and we thought you might want to know about it. Counselor Daximus leaned forward. What kind of problem? Well, hello there. You must be the High Council. Captain Mira Blackstone, pleased to make your acquaintance. The problem is pretty straightforward. About an hour ago, one of our exploration teams made contact with what appears to be your children. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop 10 degrees. Impossible, Counselor Verlina declared. Nexari youth are restricted to the inner systems. That's what we thought too. Turns out, a group of your young folks decided to take an unauthorized field trip to observe our fleet. Apparently, we're the most interesting thing that's happened in their lifetimes. My primary heart skipped several beats. Captain, please tell me you haven't harmed them. Harmed them? Thornwick, they're having the time of their lives. Our engineering teams are showing them how human technology works, and they're showing us some fascinating improvements to our designs. Kid named Pixel figured out how to increase our fusion efficiency by 12%. Another one called Ripple redesigned our navigation software to reduce computational load by 30%. Pixel and Ripple? Counselor Jaxwell's voice was barely a whisper. Yeah, bright kids. Really bright. They mentioned they were supposed to be in something called Advanced Theoretical Studies but found it boring. Can't imagine why. I felt my worldview cracking like a poorly maintained hull plate. Our most promising young minds were teaching themselves from humans. And enjoying it. Captain, Counselor Daximus said slowly, return our youth immediately. Well, here's where things get tricky. We told them they needed to go home, and they asked if they could bring some friends back tomorrow. Apparently, your entire advanced studies program wants to meet us. Out of the question, Counselor Verlina snapped. Yeah, that's what we figured you'd say. Problem is, these kids are pretty persuasive. And they've got some interesting questions about why their civilization stopped growing 3,000 years ago. The council chamber erupted in clicking, whistling protests. I raised all 4 arms for silence. Captain, what exactly did they ask? Oh, the usual teenage stuff. Why haven't the Nexari developed faster than light travel? Why haven't you explored beyond your current territory? Why does every problem have exactly one approved solution? Why aren't there any new art forms, new music, new stories? Each question hit like a precision strike. Because the answers were simple and damning. We hadn't developed faster than light travel because Phase 7 was sufficient. We hadn't explored because our territory was adequate. We solved problems with approved solutions because they worked. We didn't create new art because our existing culture was satisfactory that we had achieved perfection by eliminating progress. Captain, I said carefully, what do you propose? Simple exchange program. Our kids learn about Nexari history, culture, and technology. Your kids learn about human innovation, adaptation, and creative problem solving. Everybody wins. Absolutely not, Counselor Verlina declared. Human influence could corrupt our youth with dangerous ideas. Dangerous ideas like curiosity? Captain Blackstone's voice carried an edge of steel beneath the cheerfulness. Innovation? The desire to grow beyond what they already know? Our society is stable. Perfect. We have eliminated conflict, suffering, and uncertainty. You've also eliminated purpose, growth, and the future. The brutal honesty of that statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Captain, Counselor Daximus said finally, return our children. Your presence in Nexari space is no longer welcome. Can't do that, Counselor. Excuse me? Your kids don't want to leave. And according to the Galactic Accords on Sentient Rights, which the Nexari Empire signed 800 years ago, we can't force sapient beings to return to a location against their will. I started laughing. Actually laughing, right there in the High Council chamber. Because these impossible humans had just used our own laws against us. You planned this, I accused. Us? Planned something this elaborate? Thornwick, you give us way too much credit. We just asked your kids what they wanted to do, and they said they wanted to learn. Seemed reasonable to us. This is extortion, Counselor Corinth protested. This is evolution, I said quietly. Thornwick, Counselor Daximus's voice carried a warning, you forget yourself. No, Counselor. I'm remembering myself. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone is offering us a chance to become something more than we are. We are already perfect. We are already dead, I replied. We just haven't had the courtesy to stop breathing. The chamber fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't the silence of authority. It was the silence of realization. Captain Blackstone, I said into the communicator, I believe the Nexari Empire would be very interested in discussing your exchange program. In detail. Excellent. Fair warning though, Thornwick. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. Your perfect, peaceful civilization is going to become chaotic, unpredictable, and absolutely magnificent. And as I watched the expressions of horror and fascination warring across the faces of my fellow counselors, I realized that Captain Blackstone was absolutely right, our 3,000 years of peace were officially over, and I couldn't wait to see what came next.